I promise. No, it was a good run while it lasted. Pep talk from me. Not any of the all good things must come to an end nonsense. It just stinks. The Laval Rocket saw their season come to an end in Game 7, and we're going to talk about it. Hi friends, welcome to this week's episode of Habs Hockey Report right here on the All Habs Hockey Magazine YouTube channel, part of Rocket Sports Media. So glad that you're here with us today. My name is Amy Johnson. I'm your host for the show and the lead correspondent at ahlreport.com, and we're glad that you're here today. We've got a great show. If you're a new viewer, let us know where you're watching the show from, and get ready because we've got a great show for you today. We've got lots of Montreal Canadiens news to talk about. In our second segment, we're going to take a big magnifying glass to the end of the Calder Cup playoff run for the Laval Rocket, pushing this series in the Eastern Conference Final all the way to a Game 7. So we've got the summary of what happened in Game 7, and leading up to that, we've got some post-game reaction, and exit interviews for the Laval Rocket took place earlier today, so we're going to give you an inside look at some of those conversations and interviews with players and Coach J.F. Uhl. And then we had so many great responses to last week's feedback forum question. I'm actually very excited to end the show on kind of a positive and kind of exciting note and share with you some of the great answers we got from last week's question and talk about that. And that means, okay, this week's question, we have to get you thinking about that. Remember, every week we ask you a feedback forum question and ask you to drop your comment down below. So here it is, with Father's Day just around the corner coming up this Sunday. Want to give an opportunity for all of you to pay tribute to your dad, stepdad, grandfather, great-grandfather, uncle, whoever it may be. Share with us your favorite hockey memory with someone important to you in your life, in your family, whether it's, a favorite hockey memory from when you were young, or maybe as a teenager, or maybe even in more recent years, if you got to do something exciting and significant and memorable in relation to hockey with that important guy in your life. We'd love to hear about it. Drop us that comment down below, and we'll share them next week on the show. Kicking things off with the Habs happenings, as we always do. We talked about last week on the show, the exciting thing, everyone's focused now. We're just about 3 weeks away from the NHL entry draft being held in Montreal, and that's really all the buzz right now. Is it going to be Shane Wright, or will the Montreal Canadiens go in a different direction and take Juraj Slafkovsky or Logan Cooley or someone else completely? I would say it's going to be one of those three, probably Shane Wright, but that's the buzz right now. We talked last week on the show about the fact that the tickets to the NHL draft were going on sale from the Canadiens last week. Boy, what a debacle did that turn out to be. We heard from so many of you lamenting the fact that whether it was the pre-sale or the public sale, tickets went like that within a matter of minutes, but it wasn't the dedicated, loyal Habs fans who were snapping up those tickets. It was scalpers, it was resellers. And now when you look at the resale market for those draft tickets, I mean, they're charging up to $1,000 a ticket to get into the draft. Really disappointed with how Montreal handled this. It's really Habs fans who lose when they're completely priced out of such a unique experience. in the Bell Center, first overall pick. You'd want that place packed to the rafters with just absolutely loyal, cheering fans, and it's certainly gone very sideways in the 24 hours that tickets were available. So, very sorry to see that happen. I certainly hope. We've seen stories of plenty of families who just they can't afford the resale prices, and so they're scrapping their family plans and ideas to come to Montreal to experience the draft, which is really unfortunate. It was a disappointing way to see the draft ticket sale go down. In kind of interesting signing news, we talked last week that Chris Weidman was the first contract to be signed in the offseason, getting a 2-year extension. Another defenseman was signed to a contract this week, Otto Leskinen. Remember him? Otto Leskinen signed to a 1-year, 2-way contract. An interesting signing. Otto Leskinen played the bulk of last season over in Europe. When Otto Leskinen played for Laval 2 years ago under Joel Bouchard's tenure, Otto Leskinen was quite frankly one of the best defensemen that the Rocket had at that time. And so to bring him back into the fold on a 2-way contract, it means he can play, the 2-way contract just means he gets paid differently between the NHL and the AHL, but it gives the Canadiens some flexibility and depth at defense, but it also means we've talked about, it's going to be crowded at the blue line in Laval next year with a lot of prospects coming through and a lot of defensive prospects vying for roster spots with the NHL club. So as we're going to talk about in the next segment and in the next week or so, you're going to see probably some shakeup of the Laval Rocket roster, and some longtime fan favorites, particularly on the back end, might not be back next year because room has to be made for new contracts that have been signed, NHL contracts, Canadiens prospects, and so forth. So I'm pleased with the Otto Leskinen signing. He is a solid defenseman and got some great experience playing in a very competitive league in Europe this past year, and it'll be interesting to see where he fits into the whole puzzle come this fall in training camp. Another contract signed, but this time not on the playing side of things, Francis St. Pierre. You might not recognize that name per se, but he was signed to a contract and hired as the Montreal Canadiens assistant equipment manager, Francis, or Frankie, as he is more well known. Filling that role, he spent the last 2 years doing equipment manager duties for Rimouski in the QMJHL. But prior to that, he was the assistant equipment manager with Eric Levesque in Laval, St. John's, and Hamilton for the Canadiens AHL team. He's got a lot of experience in the Canadiens organization. Our team has a lot of experience getting to know him and seeing him in rinks all over the AHL, all over the East Coast, and just very pleased for Frankie to get this position. He's a tremendous gentleman, does a great job at what he does, very efficient, very effective, very professional, very good at what he does, but has just one of the most infectious smiles in hockey and just always seems genuinely happy to see any person he even walks past in a hallway. So you will get to know and love Frankie St. Pierre as well, and congratulations to him on that hiring. Interesting news came out this week that Logan Mailloux, after undergoing his surgery on his shoulder in April, is now in Montreal to do rehab on that shoulder. Francis Gagnon suggesting that his agent says that he's in Montreal to do the rehab and personal training on the shoulder, and could be made available to media, which will certainly be interesting. He's doing that at Cortex, which is the agency and place where Kent Hughes used to be employed. And so very interesting developments. Kent Hughes did make a statement at the beginning of the summer saying that they weren't yet in a place that they were ready to offer Logan Mailloux a contract yet. It's interesting that Logan Mailloux is in Montreal doing some rehabbing. As of course Montreal gets set for F1, it's that time of year. In fact, we saw Michael Pezzetta this week traveling out and getting to know at least one of the drivers for for F1. And it's always with the pandemic, F1 has taken a severe hit the last couple of years as for such a benchmark event for the city of Montreal. And so I think folks are getting pretty excited that it's F1 season in Montreal. And we hope that you get to enjoy it a little bit too, whether you are there or watching on TV. All right, it's Rocket Booster time. And, Rocket fans probably don't feel like much of a boost today, but don't worry. There's a silver lining to everything, and we're going to really break down what happened over the last week. When we met last week, the Rocket, of course, were in the midst of their Eastern Conference Finals series against the Springfield Thunderbirds. And really throughout the course of that series, these two teams battled to the bitter end. They alternated wins. Springfield took game 1, Laval took game 2. Springfield took game 3, Laval took game 4. Springfield took game 5, Laval took game 6. Laval giving up 2 wins at home of the 3 they played in Place Belle, which was a little unlike them. Not to say that they weren't close games that could have gone either way. They were, but ultimately a loss is a loss in the playoffs. They did, however, with their backs against the wall, come out with a win on the road in Springfield for Game 6 on Monday night and pushed things to a Game 7. It was, JF talked about how his team was calm. It was the calmest that he had seen them in a long time, both for Game 6 and Game 7. They felt that it was Springfield's to lose, that they had a lot more pressure on them being on home ice. Drew Bannister electing to go with Charlie Lindgren in net. So, of course, there was the storyline there of Charlie Lindgren, Game 7, facing his former team and former organization, with the ultimate prize that night being one of you will advance to the Calder Cup final and one of you will go home. Unlike Game 6, which looked like a sloppy, lethargic mess for Springfield and frankly a little bit for Laval as well, although they handled Springfield pretty well in that Game 6. Springfield looked like a completely different team when they came firing out of the gate in Game 7. And through the first 40 minutes, they never took their foot off the gas. They were forechecking very hard. They were finally getting pucks penetrating in towards the net, not just shooting from the perimeter as much. But the key really was finally, after 29 unsuccessful tries in this series, they finally broke through on the power play. And they did that in the first period. Matthew Pekka just lasering home a power play goal to put Springfield on the board first. And when Springfield plays with a lead, they play like a team possessed. And they took that. The home crowd took that. They built on it. And the Rocket really had trouble getting their legs under them from that point forward. Springfield actually going on to pot 2 power play goals in this game, which turned out to be pretty detrimental. There weren't a ton of penalties in this game. Laval took 3. Springfield took 2. But Laval did not score on the power play on either of their 2 opportunities. Springfield, however, scored twice of their 3 chances with the man advantage. And so, yes, I asked JFL about it after the game, if really them breaking through on the power play kind of kicked things into a new gear for them. And you'll see here in a moment, he chuckled and said, look, our PK was perfect through this game. They were going to score at some point.
Well, we killed 49 penalties or 39 penalties. Like,
that's right.
They scored tonight, but our penalty kill was excellent at 93%. For sure, they're going to score 1 or 2. I don't think that was a different in the game. I think we pushed a little bit at the end to try to create some offense, and it kind of cost us a couple turnovers. But all in all, the effort was there. And their power play scored a couple goals tonight. For sure is going to happen.
And to his credit, I agree with, no one could have expected one of the best power plays in the league through the playoffs to be completely stymied through 6 games against Laval. They were bound to start scoring on the power play at some point. I think more the idea is that it was very crucial for Laval to stay out of the penalty box. And while they only took 3 penalties, 2 of them were enough to really make a difference in this game. Laval had a chance in the third period to turn things around because Springfield seemed to sit back in the third period. They had a 3-0 lead, and they seemed to sit back a little bit, had a lot of trouble getting out of their own zone, but Charlie Lindgren stole this one for Springfield. This was a game where the goaltender stood on his head and stole one for his team. He had some goal support by being up by 3 goals, and Laval had some point blank wide open chances that Charlie Lindgren was pretty much putting up some highlight reel saves. Those chances, they weren't finishing those, and those opportunities were falling by the wayside. A shutout for the Springfield Thunderbirds, winning 4-0 in Game 7. I asked JF Wool after the game what he was most proud of his team this entire postseason.
Well, never giving up, and I think they're a group that liked each other. They played for each other. They competed all the time. We never had an issue about if they're going to show up or not. And, the compete level, the passion, they played with a lot of passion, and that we're really proud of as a coaching staff.
Now in the celebratory locker room, Springfield, of course, feeling very good that they, for the first time since the early 90s, would be heading to the Calder Cup final, and hearing from former Canadiens Charlie Lindgren, Matthew Pekka, and of course head coach Drew Bannister just about what it took for them to finally overcome this very tough to play against Laval Rocket team.
Certainly Laval pushed us right to the brink, and they're, mentally, when you have a goalie on the other side that's playing as well as he did, sometimes you can get away from your game plan, and I didn't think we did that in long spurts. I thought we, stuck to what we did well and played within our identity. I think tonight really showed well of what kind of team we are, especially down low and below the tops of circles. In the first 40 minutes, it was, the types of chances, we're getting, eventually we're going to be able to score on those. So.
You look at my whole career, I mean, this one, probably one of my most favorite wins ever for sure. After spending 5 years up there, made it extra special. And man, I love this team too. We have such a great group of guys, and for us to come through and play the way we did tonight, it just feels incredible. And again, I love playing behind this team because we're a bunch of brothers in that locker room, and we just have such a blast together. We have so much fun, and we compete hard, and playing hockey games with this group, it's really a blast.
There's just a sense of, there's obviously a sense of accomplishment, but at the same time, it's what we knew. It's what we knew we could do. It's what we knew we were gonna do. So if I could put it into words, it feels right. And we're excited for the finals.
After what was likely a long late-night drive home back to Quebec, Laval did not waste any time for exit interviews. Exit interviews took place earlier this afternoon. Our crew, myself included, was on the call for the exit interviews, speaking to about 15 or so players today, and of course then Jean-Francois Houle to talk about the season as a whole and the summer ahead and so forth. Here is just a little inside look at how some of those interviews went.
This season was a lot of fun, being around this group, but the last month and a half, it was the most fun I've ever played. I ever had playing hockey. I don't want to put any expectations. It's definitely the biggest summer of my career, and I know that going into it. So I don't want to put any expectations on where I would prefer to be, where I want to be. Just gonna give it my all this summer and show up to camp and just hope for the best then.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the team. Obviously, a huge disappointment what happened, but I think we were able to get better during the season, and during playoffs we played good hockey, and personally this season helped me a lot, and I learned a lot of things, and I know what I have to work on during.
Yeah, it was good. Every year you want to take steps and, not only development, but, your progression, stuff like that. And I think I did this year. I think I progressed defensively. I think I played well for most of the year. And like you said, I played in the NHL. So, that's a huge step up for me. And, to get the NHL contract last year and then now this year to play in the NHL is a step up. So I think I'm trending in the right direction.
I know what I want for next year. I want to make my place with the Montreal Canadiens. That's gonna be my goal, and I'm gonna work very hard this summer for that.
It's rewarding as for our coaching staff that and our trainers and stuff like that. All the hard work paid off. I think all the credit goes back to the people that put this team together, but also the players that put forth the effort all year long.
Now, if you want to hear more of what the Laval Rocket players and JF Uhl had to say in their final day, season wrap-up, exit interview day, you're going to want to make sure you subscribe and listen to next week's episode of the Press Zone podcast, hosted by myself and Rick Stevens. That comes out every Tuesday. And on this coming week's Press Zone podcast, we're going to take you even more in depth with a lot more audio clips of what and insight of what was said at Laval's exit interview media day. Just check out thepresszone.fm, hit subscribe, and check out next week's episode. Well, we can't leave you on a down note, so let's talk a little bit about you, the fans. We had some great responses to last week's feedback forum question. What was it? Can't quite remember. Well, I gave you kind of a two-part question. We are in the roster shakeup, roster management portion of the offseason, and so I asked, if you could only choose one player who was a must-keep for Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton this summer, who would it be? And who on the Canadiens' current roster is a must-trade? Who needs to either be off the team, their contract needs to be off the books, whatever your reason is, who's your must-keep? Who is your must-trade? And we had a lot of answers, and we had some really interesting ones, and everyone kind of has a little bit, while there are some similarities, everyone has a little bit of a different idea. And I think that's the great thing about questions like this, is you get to hear a lot of different perspectives as to what different fans value in the team and, maintaining cap space and so on and so forth. So let's first start with Will. Will says, need to trade Weber contract, and one player to have to keep is Caulfield. Will, thanks so much for your comment. Shea Weber's contract is not going to be an easy one to offload, but it is something that Kent Hughes needs to actively try to pursue this summer and need to move that money off the books to make room to really kickstart this rebuild. And saying one player to have to keep is Caulfield, I certainly understand that. Caulfield is one of the most exciting young forward prospects on the team right now. He certainly brings a lot of energy. Fans love him, and he could be, with Nick Suzuki, a future real face of the franchise. So we have here from Dino, who to trade? CH92. That's Jonathan Drouin is his must trade. His must keep is Ryan Poehling. An interesting selection there. I do agree Drouin is one who needs to be traded this offseason. And the amount of money that his contract commands is far outweighing his value on the team as far as production. And so Drouin would be a reasonable asset to trade away. I also like that you say Ryan Poehling is the guy to keep. Ryan Poehling finally got a glimpse of what it was like to get a solid, consistent chance at playing at the NHL level, and he didn't disappoint. I think Ryan Poehling is one of those core guys who does a lot more that kind of flies under the radar than the flashy stuff that maybe the Suzukis and Caulfields do Ryan Poehling is one of those guys that you do need in your lineup to do kind of the non-glamorous kind of work. So I like that answer as well, Dino. Dave says, must trade is the Weber cap hit contract. Got to agree with you there. We just talked about that. And move forward with a new captain. That's, I think, also, again, Shea Weber was a presence, even though he wasn't physically in the room this year, a tremendous captain. But if Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton want to formulate a new culture in that dressing room, then you do need a solidified leadership core to do that. And so I understand your thinking there. You also, and Dave also says, and the must keep is Nick Suzuki. Again, like Caulfield, I certainly understand. Yes, the Nick Suzuki, if he's going to be your top line center for now, he had a tremendous season this past year, really kind of settling into his role. Another exciting young prospect coming up through the ranks. And sure, I can absolutely see why you would choose Nick Suzuki there. Michael Spinella says, must trade Gallagher. Ooh, Michael Spinella with the controversial pick, Not to say that it's a controversial pick. I mean, if you look at the black and white hockey business side of things, Gallagher is getting a lot of money and his contract is lengthy and his production has really fallen off. He's not the same Brendan Gallagher that he used to be, quite frankly. And that's not a criticism of him. It's just an objective observation and fact. You look at his stats, he's just not performing the way that he used to be. The issue there is that he is a fan favorite. He's an emotional favorite. People talk about him as being the heart and soul of the Canadiens and his tenacity and his love for the Canadiens. And that's all undeniable. However, it doesn't make him untradeable. So it could be a possibility for Kent Hughes if the price is right. So nice answer there, Michael Spinella. He also says his must-keep is Romanov. And I like this because this is the first must-keep that we've had that's on the back end, still a young prospect. Most of these must-keeps have all been prospects. They've been Caulfield, Suzuki, Poehling, and now Romanov. And so I'm liking that trend in these answers because really this is the next generation of the Montreal Canadiens. And if this rebuild goes correctly and goes well, this crop of prospects and the ones who are coming this fall and the next year could be the ones that really start helping the Canadiens in a couple of years be serious cup contenders again. So I like the answer very much. Last but not least, we have Dominic who says Drouin is a must trade. Oh, that's two. That's two for Drouin as the must trade. And I like the Shane Wright is a must keep. Very tongue in cheek. I like that a lot. That's assuming that the Canadiens take Shane Wright. Dominic is saying he's a must keep. You got to get that Shane Wright guy. So that was very fun. And forgive me, we actually do have one more from Brendan. Puljujarvi needs a change, and so does Poehling. Do a straight-up trade. It's a win-win. That is an interesting concept. Jesse Puljujarvi, certainly a dynamic player. That would be an interesting addition to the Habs lineup for sure. Don't know that you're going to get a Puljujarvi for Poehling straight-up trade. And who knows, maybe a new start for Ryan Poehling somewhere could also kickstart something for him. I'd like to see him stay with the Canadiens, but if the price is right, anything is really possible right now. So I like the creativity there as well. Thanks so much for your answers. Thank you to all of you who sent in answers to this week's feedback forum question. Don't forget this week's question in honor of Father's Day this coming Sunday. Leave us a comment. Let us know your favorite hockey memory with your dad, or maybe it's your uncle or a grandfather or something like that. But tell us those favorite family hockey memories. Just love to hear those personal fan stories of things that make this sport so special to you and bring you such great memories. We will be here every week of the summer. Lots more to cover. If you missed last week's episode, check it out right here, and we'll see you again next Thursday. Thanks.